You think you've got it all figured out, until your whole life comes crashing down in front of your family. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only for them to turn everything upside down? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone close to you, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The moment Emily walked into her husband's family estate, something felt off. She couldn't place it. Maybe it was the cold, polished marble floors that stretched endlessly through the hallways, or maybe it was the silence, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm. The family reunion was supposed to be a celebration, a chance to reconnect with the extended family she rarely saw. But instead, Emily felt more like an outsider than ever before. She had married Michael Ashford, the kind of man who made headlines for his billion-dollar company and his flawless reputation. But now, as Emily stood in the grand foyer, the weight of a simple invitation felt suffocating. "Where's Michael?" she asked one of the staff members as they passed. The woman didn't look up, just nodded and pointed toward the back of the house. "He's in the library. The family's waiting for you." The library, of course. Michael spent most of his time buried in there, surrounded by books and work, only ever coming out when there was something important to attend to. Emily's chest tightened. Her relationship with Michael was perfect, at least on the surface. But in the last few months, she'd begun to feel the distance creeping in. He had been distracted lately, distant, cold, even a little distant when they were together at night. But Emily pushed that thought aside as she made her way through the house, feeling the cool, polished walls close in around her. When Emily stepped into the library, the large room fell silent. The Ashford family, with all their wealth, power, and poise, turned their eyes toward her. They sat around the massive oak table, but there was something different in their gaze, an unspoken tension. And at the head of the table, staring at her with a sharp, icy gaze, was Olivia Ashford, Michael's stepmother. Olivia was always polite to Emily, but there had always been something about her that rubbed Emily the wrong way. Maybe it was the way Olivia carried herself, like she was above everyone else, or the way she always seemed to have a too-perfect smile plastered on her face, like she was playing a role that didn't quite fit. "Ah, Emily, you've arrived." Olivia's voice broke the silence, her eyes glinting with something that Emily couldn't quite read. "You look lovely as always." Emily forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She had never liked the way Olivia spoke to her. It was almost patronizing, like she was always just one step ahead of her. Emily brushed it off, took her seat beside Michael, and tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling building in her stomach. The reunion started with small talk, family gossip, upcoming business deals, the usual. But something felt wrong. Olivia was too quiet, too watchful, like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Emily had learned to read people well over the years. She knew when something was off. And tonight it was undeniable. Michael was quieter than usual too, his face set in a tense frown. Emily leaned toward him, whispering, "Is everything okay?" He glanced at her briefly, then nodded stiffly. "Just tired. Don't worry about it." But Emily did worry. She was beginning to feel like she was the only one who hadn't been let in on some secret. It wasn't long before the tension in the room became unbearable. Olivia stood up, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, drawing all eyes to her. She smiled a cold, calculated smile. "I hope you don't mind, Emily," she said, holding up her phone. "But I thought it was time for you to see something." Before Emily could respond, Olivia tapped the screen of her phone, and an image appeared on the large TV screen behind her. Emily's stomach dropped. It was a photo of Michael. A photo that should never have existed. It was intimate, so intimate, in fact, that Emily's heart skipped a beat as she realized what it meant. Michael was in the picture with another woman, a woman Emily didn't recognize. They were in a hotel room, holding each other, the kind of photo that spoke of more than just an affair. It spoke of betrayal. Her breath caught in her throat as the entire room fell into a stunned silence. Everyone was looking at her, waiting for a reaction. Michael's face turned pale, his jaw clenched tightly. His eyes locked with Emily's, pleading. But she couldn't look at him. Her entire world had just shifted. That's not. What is this? Emily stammered, her voice shaking. Olivia's voice was smooth, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. Don't worry, Emily. It's just a small glimpse into your husband's true nature. I thought you'd want to know. Emily's mind was racing. She looked at Michael, waiting for him to defend himself, to explain. But he didn't say anything. He didn't even move. Olivia smiled, triumphant, almost predatory. I thought you should see it in front of everyone. After all, family secrets shouldn't be kept in the dark, should they? The room was completely still, everyone waiting for Emily's reaction. But Emily couldn't speak. She couldn't move. Her hands shook at her sides, her heart pounding in her chest. She had trusted him. She had built her life around him. And now this betrayal was being exposed in front of everyone, in front of her new family. Michael reached out toward her, but she stepped back, feeling the tears building in her eyes. She needed answers. She needed the truth. But more than anything, she needed to know why. Why would Olivia do this? Why would Michael allow it to happen? The room was silent now, everyone waiting for her to speak, to react. But there was nothing left to say. The room was still as Emily stared at the screen, her whole world crumbling around her. Olivia's smile never wavered. But then Emily saw something on the screen, a detail she hadn't noticed before, something that made her blood run cold. This wasn't just an affair. There was something more to this, something dark she hadn't even begun to understand. The room felt too quiet after Olivia's words echoed off the walls. Emily couldn't stop staring at the screen. The image of Michael with another woman burned into her mind. She had spent so many years building a life with him, putting her trust, her future, in his hands. But now that trust was crumbling right in front of her. The silence in the room was suffocating. The air felt thick, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for her to react. She couldn't speak. She wanted to scream, to shout, to demand an explanation. But no words came. She couldn't even breathe properly. She felt numb. Michael's gaze was locked on hers, desperate, pleading. His lips parted, but no sound came. He was frozen, like he knew he had already lost her, like he knew there was no going back. But Emily couldn't look at him anymore. She turned her face away, feeling the heat rise in her chest. She wanted to get out of this room. She wanted to run and never look back. But something inside her wouldn't let her. She had to know. She needed to understand how deep this went. Emily stood up from the table, her legs shaky beneath her. Every part of her screamed to leave, but she forced herself to speak. Who is she? Emily's voice was a whisper, but it felt like a shout in the heavy silence. Olivia smirked, her lips curling up in that same icy smile. Her name's Vanessa. Well, let's just say she's someone Michael and I both know. There was something in her tone, something so casual, that it made Emily's stomach churn. Michael's face was pale, his eyes wide, and still he didn't say anything. Emily's anger boiled over. Say something, she yelled, finally snapping. Tell me this isn't true. His lips trembled, but no words came. His gaze flickered to Olivia for a moment, then back to Emily. He reached out, but Emily stepped back quickly, as if his touch might burn her. No, don't touch me. Her voice cracked with raw emotion. I need to hear you say it. Is this real? The tension in the room felt like it was about to snap. Olivia's eyes glittered, and Emily could see the satisfaction there. She could feel it. Olivia wanted this. She wanted Emily to hurt. Michael, Emily said, her voice shaking now. Is this what you've been hiding from me? Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Michael flinched, his eyes pained, but still, nothing came from him. It was like he was paralyzed, caught between guilt and fear, unable to face the truth he had created. I never meant for you to find out like this, he finally muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, but it felt like a betrayal in itself. How could he possibly say that? He had kept it from her, lied to her, for months, maybe even longer, I need to leave, Emily said, her voice cold now. I need to think. I can't stay here. She turned to walk out, her heart heavy and aching with every step. She couldn't even look at Michael as she passed him, couldn't bear to be in the same room as him anymore. But as she reached the door, Olivia's voice cut through the tension once more. Leaving already? Olivia's tone was dripping with mock sympathy. You're going to leave him just like that? After everything you've built together? Emily froze. She wanted to ignore it, to just walk out and forget this whole nightmare. But something in Olivia's words made her stop. I'm sorry, Emily, Olivia said, her voice softening. But you need to understand, Michael isn't who you think he is. And neither am I. Emily turned back slowly, her heart hammering in her chest. What was Olivia talking about? She had already exposed one secret. What more could she possibly have? Olivia held up another picture. This one was different. It wasn't a photo of Michael with Vanessa. It was a picture of Emily herself, taken from behind, a snapshot of her at a recent charity event. How does it feel, Emily? Olivia asked, her eyes gleaming with something dark. To have your life put on display for everyone to see? Emily's blood ran cold. How did Olivia even get this picture? What else was she planning? Why are you doing this? Emily's voice was barely audible, but the desperation was clear. What do you want from me? Olivia didn't hesitate. I want you to see what you've built your life on. I want you to understand that you've been living in a fantasy. Emily's mind raced, but it felt like the room was spinning. She had trusted Michael. She had given everything to him. And now everything was falling apart. She didn't know who to believe anymore. Michael, Emily said, her voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me? But he didn't respond. He didn't even move. The betrayal hit Emily like a wave, crashing over her and dragging her under. She had thought she was in control of her life. She had thought she knew who Michael was. But now nothing felt real anymore. Her whole world was slipping through her fingers. The rest of the family sat in stunned silence. Not a single word of comfort. Not a single offer of support. It was as if they were all just watching, waiting to see how Emily would react. And in that moment, she realized something. She wasn't part of this family. She never had been. They had never really accepted her. It wasn't just Olivia. It was everyone in that room, all of them complicit in whatever game she had been playing. And in that moment, Emily realized that she didn't need any of them. She had a life before Michael. She could have a life after him. But this betrayal was too much. She couldn't stay in this house any longer. As Emily stepped into the cold night, her heart was shattered, but something inside her shifted. She wasn't going to be a victim of this anymore. But the question that kept echoing in her mind was a terrifying one. Could she ever trust again? Emily had driven for what felt like hours, but she couldn't remember the road. Her eyes were blurry from tears, her mind a blur of shattered pieces. She didn't even know where she was headed. Just away. Away from Michael. Away from Olivia. Away from the house that had once felt like home. The headlights of her car cut through the dark road ahead, but the world around her felt like it was swallowed up by shadows. The further she drove, the harder it became to breathe. She had trusted him. She had trusted Michael, and now it felt like everything had been a lie. The affair with Vanessa was bad enough, but Olivia's cruel words had torn through her like a knife. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying to steady herself. This wasn't real, she told herself. This can't be real. But it was. She could still see the picture on the screen. The look on Olivia's face. The emptiness in Michael's eyes when he said nothing. What was that? What kind of man had she married? But no matter how much she wanted to believe it wasn't real, it was. And the worst part was, Emily had known something was off for months. She just hadn't wanted to see it. Emily finally pulled up to her apartment building. The lights were dim. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars. She didn't have the energy to even park properly, just putting the car in neutral and stepping out, leaving the door wide open. Inside her apartment, everything was still the same as it had been that morning. The same couch, the same untouched coffee cup on the counter, the same quiet, familiar hum of the refrigerator. But it all felt wrong now. The silence suffocated her. She sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. She wasn't sure what she expected when she got home. A sense of relief, maybe? A moment of calm? But all she could feel was emptiness. The walls around her felt too close. They were suffocating her. She pulled her knees up to her chest and rested her head on them. Why? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Michael. "Emily, please let me explain. I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me." She stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the screen. She wanted to respond. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to ask him how he could do this to her. But she didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she put her phone down and let out a shaky breath. She closed her eyes and let the tears come. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Emily wasn't ready to face anyone, especially not Michael. But the person standing at her door wasn't him. It was her best friend, Mia. Mia didn't even wait for Emily to say anything. She pushed her way inside, sat down next to Emily on the couch, and pulled her into a tight hug. "Tell me what happened," Mia whispered, her voice thick with concern. Emily didn't even know how to start. She had spent the whole night replaying everything, but nothing seemed to make sense. "It's all falling apart, Mia. I don't know what to do. Michael, he didn't even fight for me. He just stood there and let Olivia ruin everything. And I don't know if I can ever trust him again." Mia's hands rested on Emily's shoulders, giving her a firm squeeze. "I know this is hard, Em, but you can't let him off the hook like this. If he really loved you, he wouldn't have let this happen. You deserve someone who sees you, who values you, not someone who hides behind lies." Emily wanted to believe that. She wanted to hear it. But deep down, she wasn't sure if she could let go of the man she had built her life with. She wanted him to come back, to apologize, to make things right. But was that even possible? That evening, Emily took a walk down the street. She had to clear her head. She couldn't stay in her apartment anymore, couldn't be surrounded by the memories of a life she wasn't sure she wanted anymore. The cold air hit her face as she walked, but it didn't seem to ease the ache in her chest. She could still hear Olivia's words echoing in her mind. "He's not who you think he is, Emily, and neither am I." Every time she replayed that moment, she felt a twinge of guilt. What if Olivia was right? What if Michael wasn't the man she thought he was? What if she had been so blinded by her love for him that she missed all the signs? She stopped in front of a small coffee shop, the neon lights flickering above the door. She hadn't been out here in weeks. She used to come here with Michael on weekends, grabbing coffee and sitting at the little corner table by the window. It had always been a place that felt safe, like it was theirs. But now, it felt like a reminder of everything that was slipping away from her. She walked past the window and turned down the alley behind the shop. She needed to be alone. She needed space to think. As she walked further into the quiet alley, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Michael. "I'll do whatever it takes, Emily. Just don't walk away from me. Please." The message was simple, but it hit her hard. She wanted to respond, to tell him what she was feeling. But how could she even trust him enough to talk about it? She stopped walking and leaned against the brick wall. Was this even worth fighting for anymore? A part of her wanted to say yes. She loved him. She still loved him, and that hurt more than anything else. But could she forgive him? Could she forgive herself for not seeing the truth? She didn't know. But there was one thing she was certain of. She couldn't keep running away from this. Emily took a deep breath and wiped her eyes. This wasn't just about Michael anymore. It was about her. She had to decide if she was willing to stay in this relationship, or if she was ready to let go and start over. But the question burned in her mind. Was she strong enough to face the truth? It had been a week since Emily left Michael's family house. A week since the confrontation. A week since she had heard nothing but silence from him. But the silence was eating away at her. She'd tried to move on. She'd buried herself in work, even went to a yoga class for the first time in months to clear her head. But none of it worked. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Michael's face. The way he looked at her, the way he seemed so broken but still so distant. But today it was different. She walked into a small cafe down the street from her apartment, the scent of fresh coffee and pastries filling the air. It wasn't her usual place. She liked to keep to herself lately, but she needed a change of scene. As she walked toward the counter, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her best friend Mia. "Are you okay? You haven't been answering my calls." Emily sighed and glanced at the phone. She wanted to text back, but before she could, a voice interrupted her. "Emily?" She froze. She turned around slowly, her heart sinking when she saw Michael standing there, looking almost as lost as she felt. "Michael!" Her voice was quiet, almost unsure. She didn't know if she wanted to see him, but there he was, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He had that same familiar, exhausted look on his face, the kind that always made her want to reach out to him. "Can we talk?" His voice was soft, almost pleading. "Please." Emily took a deep breath, weighing her options. Her first instinct was to walk out of the cafe and keep running, but something in his eyes, something in the way he asked, made her pause. "Sure," she said, barely above a whisper. They sat down at a small table by the window, and for a few moments, neither of them spoke. The quiet stretched between them, thick and heavy. The noise of the cafe, the sound of coffee being poured, the soft hum of conversation, seemed to fade away as Emily tried to focus on what Michael was going to say. "I've been an idiot," Michael finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've messed up, Emily. I know that. But you have to understand, I never wanted to hurt you." She shook her head. "Then why didn't you tell me? Why did you let this happen?" He ran his hand through his hair, looking frustrated with himself. "I don't know. I thought I could keep it under control. I thought I could fix it. But I was wrong. And now it's too late." The words hit her like a slap to the face. She could feel the anger building inside her, but she tried to stay calm. She couldn't let him see how deeply this had cut her. "It's not too late, Michael," she said quietly, her voice firm. "But it will be if you don't stop running from the truth. I need you to be honest with me. About everything." He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and desperation. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words seemed to stick in his throat. "I was confused," he finally said, his voice low. "I never meant to fall for her. But I did. And it's not just about the affair. It's about the lies I've been telling myself for years. About who I am, who I'm supposed to be. I've been living in this bubble, thinking I could have everything. Success, love, respect. But I couldn't balance it all. And I kept pretending like it didn't matter." Emily felt the sting of his words, but she couldn't stop herself from asking, "Why did you let Olivia get involved? Why did you let her push me out of our own life?" Michael's face tightened at the mention of Olivia. "I don't know. I didn't think it was going to get this far. She's always had control over me. I never realized how much until now." Emily let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "You've been letting everyone control your life, Michael. Not just Olivia. Not just me. You've been running from the truth for so long. I'm not sure you even know who you are anymore." The words felt harsh, but they were the truth. Emily had spent so many years supporting him, loving him while he hid behind lies and distractions. She wasn't angry at him anymore. She was angry at herself for letting it go on for so long. They sat there in silence for a few minutes, the weight of the conversation sinking in. Michael didn't look away. His eyes were filled with regret, but Emily wasn't sure if she could trust that anymore. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right now," he said finally, breaking the silence. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to believe that I want to fix this. I'm asking you to give me a chance." Emily looked down at her hands, her mind racing. She wanted to say something, anything, to make him understand that she wasn't sure if she could believe him again. But the words wouldn't come. She didn't know what to say. The decision felt impossible. The silence between them was deafening. But then, finally, Emily looked up, meeting his eyes. "I can't fix you, Michael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't be the one to fix this. You have to fix yourself." Michael looked like he wanted to say something else. But before he could, the cafe door opened, and a familiar face walked in. It was Olivia. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, And when they landed on Michael and Emily, her lips curled into a smirk. She didn't say anything, but the tension in the air shifted. Olivia didn't need to speak. Her presence alone was enough to remind Emily of everything she'd been running from. Emily didn't know what to do anymore. Felt like the walls were closing in on her. Every step forward seemed to take her 2 steps back. But as Olivia's cold gaze met hers, Emily realized she couldn't keep living like this. One way or another, something had to give. The days after the cafe conversation felt like a blur. Emily couldn't get Michael's words out of her head, couldn't escape the heavy guilt that had followed her since. The truth of everything, the affair, the lies, Olivia's manipulation, was starting to sink in, and it felt like a crushing weight on her chest. But that night, when she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Emily felt more numb than anything else. Her phone buzzed beside her, breaking the silence. She reached for it, almost afraid to see who it was. Michael. For a moment, she hesitated, but something inside her made her open the message. Emily, I know I've hurt you. I never meant to, but I need to tell you something important. I'm going to fight for us. I'm going to fix everything. Her stomach twisted. She didn't know if she should be relieved, angry, or just exhausted. The emotions were all tangled inside her. But as she stared at the screen, something else hit her. The truth. Michael hadn't been the only one hiding things from her. She'd been hiding from herself, from the truth she'd known for months. She hadn't wanted to admit it, but now, she couldn't ignore it any longer. She wasn't just hurt by what Michael did. She was hurt by how much she had allowed him to take from her. She'd let him control the narrative of their relationship, let him make the decisions, let him keep things from her. And Olivia had exposed everything Emily had been too afraid to see. She needed to face that truth now. It wasn't just about Michael's betrayal. It was about her own choices, and that hurt just as much. The next day, Emily's mind was still reeling. She barely had the energy to get out of bed, let alone face the world. But some force inside her, pushed her to go for a walk. She needed fresh air, needed space to breathe and think. As she stepped outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows on the pavement. She turned a corner, heading toward the park, when she saw her. Olivia. She was standing across the street, talking to someone, her sharp voice carrying through the air. But when Olivia turned and saw Emily, the conversation stopped. Her face went cold, her eyes narrowing with that familiar smugness. Emily froze. The last thing she wanted to do was engage with Olivia. But something about the way Olivia looked at her, like she owned everything, made her heart pound with a new sense of resolve. Olivia stepped toward her, her heels clicking sharply against the sidewalk. Emily stood still, trying to hold her ground, but it wasn't easy. The anger that had been simmering inside her for days started to bubble up. You know, Emily, Olivia began, her voice sweet but taunting. I don't blame you for being upset. Michael can be difficult, but you have to understand. He doesn't deserve someone like you. Emily clenched her fists. Here it comes. She could already hear Olivia's words in her mind, but she wouldn't let her have this control. Not anymore. You don't know anything about me, Olivia, Emily said, her voice steady. You don't get to decide who Michael deserves or doesn't deserve. Olivia's smile only grew. Oh, I think I do. I'm not the one who's been pretending for years. I'm not the one who's been hiding from the truth. She took a step closer. You've been living in a fantasy, Emily, and I'm just here to remind you of what it really is. Emily's heart thudded painfully in her chest. Olivia's words stung, but they also brought something else. Clarity. Emily had been living in a lie, yes, but that lie wasn't just Michael's to own. It was hers, too. But that was going to change now. I'm done with your games, Emily said, her voice low but firm. You don't get to control me anymore. Olivia's eyes flashed with surprise, but she quickly masked it with a smirk. We'll see, won't we? With that, Olivia turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing in the middle of the street, her heart racing. But for the first time in days, Emily felt something shift inside her. That night, Emily sat in her apartment, staring at the small box on the coffee table. The box held some of the things Michael had given her over the years: gifts, letters, photos, pieces of their life together that used to make her heart swell with love. But now they felt like weight she didn't want to carry anymore. For a long time, Emily had believed that holding on to those things would keep her anchored to something good. But now all she saw was the lie. And the truth was, she couldn't keep living in the past. She needed to let go. Her hands shook as she opened the box and started to take out the letters, the small trinkets, the photos that had once meant everything. But now, they felt like a part of a life that wasn't hers anymore. She walked to the trash can and slowly, deliberately, threw everything away. One by one, each piece of their life together disappeared. And with it, so did the version of herself that had lived for him. When it was done, Emily stood there, staring at the empty box. She felt lighter, but there was still a part of her that ached. Letting go wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Just as she was about to sit down, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her breath caught in her throat. It was Michael. "Emily, I've been thinking. I can't keep running from this. I need to talk to you. Please." Her heart skipped a beat. She'd finally made the decision to move on, to stop letting him control her life, and here he was asking for another chance. But as she stared at his message, she felt a sudden calmness settle over her. She wasn't the same woman who had been afraid to face the truth. She wasn't the same woman who had stayed silent for years, hoping things would get better. She had changed. The phone buzzed again. Michael was waiting for a response. But Emily wasn't sure if she was ready to give him one just yet, because this time the choice was hers. Emily's phone buzzed again. Another text from Michael. It was like he could feel her hesitation, her inner turmoil. Each message felt heavier than the last. "Please, Emily, I can't keep living like this. We need to talk in person. I'm coming over." She stared at the message for a long time. Her heart raced, her hands trembling as she tried to decide whether to respond. She had told herself that she was done. That she was done with the lies, done with the pain. But now, here he was asking for one more chance. The worst part? She didn't know if she could say no. It had been days since their last conversation, and though Emily had tried to distance herself, she could still feel his presence everywhere. His ghost hung in her apartment, in the empty spaces between her thoughts. She couldn't just erase him from her life like it was nothing. But was she ready to hear him out? Was she ready to let him back in? She walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street below. The sun was setting, the sky bathed in hues of pink and orange. It should have been beautiful, but to Emily, it felt like a symbol of everything that was slipping away. Then the doorbell rang. Her heart skipped. She hadn't replied to his text. She wasn't ready. But here he was. She stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. The silence in her apartment felt suffocating. Slowly, she walked to the door, her footsteps heavy with uncertainty. When she opened it, Michael stood there, his face drawn with exhaustion. He looked different than he had the other day, less guarded, more vulnerable. His eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in days. "Emily?" he whispered, his voice breaking as he looked at her. "Can we talk? Please." The sight of him standing there, looking so broken, so desperate, should have made her want to run. But it didn't. It made her want to listen. She stepped aside and let him in, the weight of the moment hanging between them like an unspoken question. They sat on the couch, the space between them wide and awkward. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The tension in the air was thick, pressing down on them, making it hard to breathe. Finally, Michael broke the silence. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I've hurt you more than I ever thought I could. But I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I just need you to hear me out." Emily nodded, her throat tight. She had no idea what he was going to say, but she couldn't stop herself from listening. She had to know if there was anything left between them, or if it had all been an illusion from the start. "I've been running from myself, Emily," Michael continued, his voice raw. "For years. I've been lying to you, lying to everyone, including myself. But the truth is, I've never stopped loving you. Even through everything, even through the mess I've made, I still love you. The words hit her harder than she expected. They were simple, but they carried so much weight. The love she had once felt for him, the love that had been buried under so many layers of hurt, started to stir within her. But then came the truth, the thing she couldn't ignore. "You've always loved me," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you never showed it. You hid it behind excuses, behind lies. You let me believe I wasn't enough." Michael's face fell, his eyes filling with regret. "I didn't mean to do that. I never meant for you to feel like that. But I couldn't face the truth. Not until now." The room felt colder. Every word he said dug deeper, but there was something else too. Something raw and real that neither of them could ignore. The love was still there, but it wasn't enough. Not anymore. "You hurt me, Michael," Emily said, the tears she'd been holding back finally breaking through. "You hurt me when I needed you most, and I don't know if I can keep living like that." Michael reached for her hand, his touch gentle but pleading. "I know, and I know I've lost your trust. But if you let me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it back." Emily's heart was torn in two. She had wanted him to fight for them, wanted him to stand up and show her that he was the man she once believed in. But even now, with all his apologies, she wasn't sure if she could ever get back to who they used to be. For a long time, Emily just sat there, staring at their intertwined hands, her mind racing. She felt the pull of their history, the pull of the love that had once been so strong between them. But she also felt something else, something sharper, something that cut deeper. She wasn't the same woman who had stood by his side all those years. She had changed. And maybe, just maybe, she needed to change again. For herself. "I don't know if I can do this, Michael," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I can keep loving you like I did." Michael's face crumpled, but he didn't pull away. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm worth your trust. Please, just give me the chance to show you." Emily stood up, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure if this was the right decision, but she couldn't stay trapped in the past anymore. She needed to look forward. For the first time in so long, she felt like she was taking control of her life, her heart, her future. But before she could speak again, Michael grabbed her arm gently, stopping her. "Please, don't walk away from me. Not like this." The words were simple, but they hit Emily in a way she didn't expect. The pain in his voice was real. The sincerity was there. And for a moment, just a fleeting moment, she wondered if maybe they could start over. But was she ready? Was she truly ready to take that leap again? Emily took a deep breath, her heart racing in her chest. She looked into Michael's eyes, searching for some sign of the man she once loved. And in that moment, everything seemed to hang in the balance. Could she take the risk? Could she open her heart again? She didn't know. But whatever came next, she knew this was the moment that would define everything. The days after Michael's visit were a blur. Emily had tried to go back to her routine, but everything felt off. The streets outside felt quieter, the coffee in her cup colder. It was like everything she used to do was now just noise. The only thing she could hear was the pounding of her heart, a constant reminder that the decision she had to make was looming, bigger than ever. She couldn't escape it anymore. She couldn't escape him. Every night, the phone would buzz, and every night, she'd stare at his messages. They were always the same. Pleading, apologizing, begging for another chance. At first, she'd read them and then set the phone down, unable to respond. But the guilt always lingered. The love was still there, buried deep inside, though she couldn't tell if it was enough to fix everything that had been broken. One evening, Emily found herself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. She had been running from the truth, from the hard choices. But now the truth was staring back at her. Was she willing to let go of the past? Could she really forgive him? Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't hesitate. She grabbed it, opened the message. "Emily, I know I messed up, but I need you. I need to fix this. Please, I'm waiting. Just give me a chance." A wave of emotions hit her at once. Anger, sadness, longing. She set the phone down, feeling the weight of it all, knowing she couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. Later that night, Emily stood in front of the mirror again. But this time, she wasn't just facing herself. She was facing her future. Could she live with herself if she walked away? She had already let go of so much. Her career, her dreams, her identity. All in the name of love. But where had it gotten her? She wasn't the same woman she had been when she first met Michael. She had changed. She had found strength she didn't know she had. And now, she had to decide if it was enough to walk away, or if the love she once shared with him was still worth saving. She grabbed her coat, determined. She couldn't wait any longer. The drive to Michael's house felt endless, the quiet stretching out between each passing mile. She tried not to think too much about what she was about to do. She had already told herself this was the end. But her heart wasn't so sure. When she pulled up in front of his grand house, she almost turned back. It looked so different, so cold now. The house that had once been filled with laughter and love felt like a shell. And inside, Michael waited. Emily took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Michael answered quickly, as if he'd been waiting for her, even though she hadn't called ahead. His face lit up when he saw her, but it quickly fell when he saw the look on her face. She didn't smile. She couldn't. "Emily," he said, his voice soft. "I've been thinking about you non-stop. Please, come in." She shook her head, holding up her hand. "No, we need to talk, Michael." She stepped inside, the cold air from outside still clinging to her skin. Michael looked like he hadn't slept in days, his hair unkempt, his eyes tired. He reached for her hand, but she pulled back, the distance between them growing. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Emily began, her voice steadier than she felt. "And I've come to a conclusion. Painful one. But it's the truth." Michael's face tightened, the color draining from his cheeks. "What are you saying?" She looked at him, the man she had once thought she'd spend forever with, the man who had promised her everything, and in the end had taken so much. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I can't keep pretending. I can't keep waiting for you to change." Michael opened his mouth, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "You broke me, Michael, and I let you. I can't keep doing that to myself. I can't keep going in circles, trying to fix something that's beyond saving." His eyes flickered with something. Shock, disbelief, maybe even fear. But Emily was no longer afraid. She had walked this road for too long, and now it was time to step off it. "You were right about one thing," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "I've been hiding from the truth. But the truth is, I deserve more than this. I deserve a life where I'm not waiting for someone to love me properly. I deserve a life where I don't have to beg for respect." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging between them. Michael's face crumpled, and for a brief moment, Emily saw the man she once knew. The one who had been so full of hope, the one who had promised her everything. But that man was gone. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I've been such a fool. I never meant to hurt you, but I did, and I don't know how to fix it." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She wasn't going to cry for him anymore. She wasn't going to let him have that piece of her. "I know you're sorry," she said softly, taking a step back. "But sorry isn't enough. Not anymore." Michael looked lost, his eyes pleading with her. "Emily, please, don't leave me. I don't know how to do this without you." Her heart broke at his words, but she didn't falter. "You'll figure it out. We both will." Emily turned to walk out, but then something made her stop. She looked back at him, seeing the pain in his eyes, the desperation. And for just a second, she wondered if she was making the right choice. But deep down, she knew she was. As she stepped out the door, she closed it gently behind her. The sound of it clicking shut echoed in her mind, a finality that felt like freedom. But even as she walked away, a question lingered in the air, one that she couldn't ignore. Had she really let go? The road ahead was uncertain, and as Emily stepped into her car, driving away from the man she once loved, she realized the journey she had started wasn't over. It had only just begun. The weeks after Emily walked away from Michael were some of the hardest of her life. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to change. But it wasn't just the world that needed to change. It was her. She found herself walking along the familiar streets of her neighborhood more often than she'd like to admit, trying to remember who she was before Michael came into her life. She had given so much of herself to him, to the idea of them. Now, she was trying to rediscover the person who had been lost in that relationship. Every morning was a quiet struggle, but every night was a victory. At first, it was hard to look at the little things. The coffee shop where they'd spent lazy weekends, the park bench where they'd talked about their dreams, the quiet evenings they'd shared on her couch. But soon, the memories didn't sting as much. They became pieces of her story, not chains that held her back. Emily found herself smiling again, a smile that was hers and hers alone. One day, as she sat in the corner of the coffee shop she used to frequent with Michael, she felt something shift within her. The steam from her coffee curled up into the air, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she was pretending. She wasn't chasing after someone else's version of happiness anymore. She was creating her own. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down, and her heart skipped a beat. It was from Michael. "I know you need time, but I want you to know, I'm still here. I'm not giving up on us." She stared at the words for a long time. This was the same message he had sent over and over, just in different words. But this time, something was different in her heart. She didn't feel torn. She didn't feel conflicted. She wasn't sure what tomorrow would look like. But today, she knew what she needed to do. Emily put her phone down and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, the weight in her chest didn't feel like it was crushing her. She stood up, walked outside, and let the cold air fill her lungs. She wasn't running from anything anymore. She was moving forward. A few days later, Emily found herself sitting in her car outside Michael's house. She had told herself that she wasn't going to do this. She wasn't going to go back to the past. But the truth was, she needed closure. Not for him, but for her. She had to make peace with the love they'd shared, the pain they'd caused each other. She had to say goodbye in a way that didn't feel like a final chapter, but more like the beginning of something new. Her phone rang. Michael's name appeared on the screen. She didn't hesitate. She picked up. "Emily?" His voice cracked, filled with longing. "I don't know if I can keep doing this without you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive myself." Her heart hurt for him, but it was different now. The desperation in his voice didn't break her anymore. She knew she had to say what she had to say. "You've got to forgive yourself, Michael. You can't wait for me to do that for you." There was a long pause on the other end, then a soft sigh. "I wish I could change everything, Emily." She smiled gently. "I know, but I've learned something important, too. I can't keep waiting for someone else to fix me. I've got to do that myself. And I think I'm finally on my way." There was silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a peaceful silence, the kind that came from knowing they were both finally on the same page. "I'll always care about you, Michael," she said quietly. "But I need to move forward. I need to let go of what we were and embrace what's next." Another long pause, but this time, when he spoke, it was softer, calmer. "I understand, Emily. I do. And I want you to be happy. You deserve that." She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. "Thank you." She hung up the phone and sat there for a moment. The weight that had been on her shoulders for so long was finally starting to lift. It didn't mean she wasn't sad. It didn't mean the love wasn't real. It simply meant that she was strong enough to walk away and live her life without looking back. She put the car in drive and pulled away from Michael's house. The city skyline stretched out ahead of her, glowing softly in the evening light. She didn't know where her journey would lead, but for the first time, she was excited about it. Weeks passed. Emily continued to grow, her heart mending in its own time. She found new hobbies, met new people, and reconnected with old friends. She started feeling the pulse of life again, the same pulse that had once been so muffled by her relationship with Michael. One chilly December afternoon, she was walking through a park when she saw a little girl sitting on a bench, drawing in the dirt with a stick. Her bright red scarf stood out against the gray backdrop of winter. Emily smiled softly, the warmth in her chest surprising her. The little girl looked up and smiled back, her eyes bright and curious. "Hi," she said in a sweet, soft voice. "Do you like drawing too?" Emily's heart swelled. She knelt down to her level. "I used to love drawing when I was your age." The little girl's smile grew wider. "Can you be my new mom?" she asked, her words innocent but somehow so full of hope. Emily froze for a second, a mix of emotions flooding through her: sadness, joy, longing. She hadn't expected the question, but it felt like a gentle reminder of the life she was building for herself. A life full of new beginnings. "I think I'm still figuring that out," Emily said gently, her voice soft with the realization that her heart was ready to love again, just not in the way she had once thought. As Emily watched the little girl run off with a smile, she realized something important. Love didn't always look like what she had expected. It wasn't always a person. Sometimes, love was a quiet moment, a connection with someone you'd never met, a future that was still unfolding. And maybe, just maybe, that was what she needed. For the first time in a long while, Emily didn't feel the weight of the past. Instead, she felt the promise of tomorrow. There was still so much more to her story, and she was finally ready to live it. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.